Right. Welcome to this program, all of you, Athasians, and our guests from outside. We have today three guests. We have um, Jyoti, Pande Lavkare. We have Sherebanu Frosh and Anjashri Pratap talking to us on a very, very important subject about which we are all very vaguely aware. We all talk about air pollution. We read so much about it, but I'm not sure to what extent we are fully aware of the danger that it poses and the extent to which we ourselves are being subjected to the dangers of that pollution. I was just looking at some figures and I was horrified. And I was looking at them because we were having this program this evening. So I was horrified to find that against the WHO guidelines for air pollution, the permissible limit in India itself, permissible limit set by the government, is very, very lax. For instance, for what is considered before particle matter 2.5 micron, the WHO norm is 10 micrograms per cubic meter annual. Against that, the Indian standard allowed by the government is 40, 40 against 10. And the actual pollution level was, this is annual, was about 109 in Delhi. And right today at 10 o'clock in the morning in Bangalore, the pollution level was 105. And in Whitefield, where we are placed, it was 55. 55 against the WHO norm of 10 and the government of India's norm of 40. So this is the kind of thing that we are facing. We don't even know. And particle matter 2.5 is more dangerous than 10 and some of the other pollutants. So this is the kind of thing that we are facing. Of course, during the lockdown, it had gone down across all the cities, but we don't know what it will be once we come to what is called the near normal. Now, it is in this context of that we really welcome efforts for organizations and individuals to create mass awareness. Mass awareness of the dangers that we are exposing ourselves to, the premature deaths that, even according to the WHO, are happening just because of air pollution, just because of sulfur dioxide or um, particle matter, and so on, or carbon monoxide, whatever. Now, it is in this context that we have with us Jyoti, who has been. Uh, Sorry, I'm just trying to admit one of my members. Jyoti, who's been an evangelist, in fact, all three. That's one thing that brings all of them together, and is the co founder of an organization called Care for Air. And she has been, this has been her passion. She's a prolific writer, uh, writer about, writer in financial journalism, writer about pollution, environment, and so on. And it's in this context that she has uh, a very recent contribution, a book called Breathing Here is Injurious to Your Health. And she will talk about the book also, and she will converse about that book with Shirin Frosh. So welcome, Jyoti, and welcome, Shireen. And we have a student activist. We have Anushree. I'm so happy to see you, Anushree, as uh, representing the student wing of Care for Air and volunteering to do this work along with your studies. Uh, she started, in fact, with cleanliness campaigns in the neighborhood, went on to pollution-free Diwali celebrations, and now she's a very, very active environmentalist, if I may put it that way. And Anushree will also do a PowerPoint presentation at the end of this program. Now, without further ceremony, I would like to start off the program. Uh, but okay, just wait a minute. Before we start the program, I would like our Athasrian Prabhakar Lavkare and Jyoti is his daughter-in-law. Both are here. Prabhakar, why don't you come in and say hello to Jyoti?
Hello, Jyoti. How are you?
Very well, Baba. How are
Virtual
you?
visit. You want a real visit, Jyoti? You're not yet come here.
No, the minute Corona is a little bit in our past, in our rear view mirror, for sure. We are already making plans.
Everyone else has come except you.
Yeah,
Okay?
yeah,
You're waiting.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay, Jyoti, very nice to have you here. And I hope you can join us for tea afterwards. Okay?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Raja, you can have Jyoti start the talk now.
Okay, can I mute everyone? And I request Jyoti, Anushree, and Sherepanu to unmute themselves.
I'm not getting.
You can unmute yourself. Is that okay? You able to do it? You able to unmute yourself?
Yes. Yes, now it is.
Yeah,
It was not allowing us to.
Yeah, the host has to tell them, host or co-host.
Right. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, start off.
Sherry, do you want to start?
Why don't you start reading? I think you've chosen an excerpt to read. And
Okay.
why don't we set the stage by reading this excerpt and then we'll go forward.
Sure. So I'd like to thank Athashri, my father-in-law, Dr. Lavakare and Mr. Raja for making this and facilitating this. I think it's very important for all of us to become more aware of air pollution because we do know it's around us, but I don't think we realize how much around us it is. Actually, people ask me, why I wrote this book, and my answer to that is quite simple. I wrote it so that others like me who are not experts understand the health harm that pollution triggers. We can't see the deadliest of the pollution particles, the PM 2.5 particles. And I also, when I moved back to India after living briefly in California, I was not aware of how bad air pollution in India was. I was born and mostly raised in New Delhi, and both my children were too. My husband's job took us to Palo Alto. And when we decided to move our family back to India, it was an active choice we made. We wanted our children to know their rich culture, find their identity in the land of their ancestors, spend more time with their grandparents. And we wanted to adopt the best practices of the East and West, find our own balance. But very soon after my return, I felt something was wrong. My expat friends were the ones who kept talking about toxic air and asking me why I came back to expose my children to health harm. But my childhood friends, the ones I had grown up with, on the other hand, kept telling me that I had just become paranoid because I had lived in the West, and this was all in my head, and I was imagining this. So, as a trained journalist, the only thing that was left for me to do was to kind of research and investigate this. And what I found was actually shocking, more shocking because actually all this information was hidden in plain sight. It was right there for the asking, except it was not in a vocabulary that non experts could understand. But it was only after my mother got diagnosed with lung cancer that I realized the difference between knowing all of this, because I had been working in air pollution from 2013-14, and my mom got diagnosed in 2017. I realized all that information and knowledge and research that I had on air pollution, it was all in my head. And it's very different to know it in your heart when you see somebody you love suffering. And that is actually what led me to write this book, because I wanted to make meaning from my mother's death. It helped me process my grief, but it also helped me connect the dots so that other people would benefit from what I had gone through and realize how much air pollution is affecting them. So I'm just going to read one short excerpt from the book. This is in chapter 4 of the book. Breathing here is injurious to your health. And this is one of my expat friends who also only after moving to India realized how bad the air quality was. When I meet Jen for the first time on a cool October evening in 2012, we connect instantly. She is originally a California girl, and we talk excitedly about Palo Alto and Delhi, how rich both places are in such different ways, the similarities and dissimilarities. We promise to stay in touch, then, like it always is, we lose contact. It will be another year before she and I actually begin to talk about our experiences with pollution and what it is doing to our families. It will be later, after I have joined her cohort of pollution warriors, after she has returned to the US and joined the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, after my mother has succumbed to lung cancer, that we will piece together the story of the invisible killer, phone call by weekly phone call. I fell in love with Delhi almost as soon as we arrived. It was magical, beautiful. There was this mystical sort of haze surrounding everything. Jen says in one of those calls, her voice sounding wistful. The school was great, we were happy, everything seemed wonderful until the headache started. My daughter was a track and field athlete, but running seemed to give her headaches and made her feel sick. She was otherwise a healthy tween and had never had asthma or any respiratory problem in the past. But now, she just always seemed to be sick. Jen's background, including her master's degree in public health, made her more sensitive, telling her something was very wrong. First, it was just the headache. Then, one or the other of us always seemed to be sick. In our first winter in Delhi, we were all sick at different points in time, she reminisces. Naturally, as a mother, I was very concerned. I kept thinking there was some weird virus that was around. By the end of that year, Jen had dived deeper into the research. But since the secret of Delhi's air remained hidden in plain sight, it took some time for her to make the connection. When I found the numbers, I was appalled, says Jen. The numbers she's referring to were of PM 2.5, and at first Jen couldn't believe how high the numbers were. I couldn't understand why no one was talking about that level of pollution, she wonders. But I was still too new to Delhi, and I was bashful. In fact, most people in the international community only talked about fine dust, PM10. Heat and dust are what define India to foreigners. Everyone talks about the dust in India. But PM 2.5 isn't dust, it's much smaller. The finest microparticles that bypass all the natural barriers the human body has, including nose hairs that trap dust. Once inhaled, these particles go deep into the lungs and are absorbed into the bloodstream, thus traveling to all organs of the body. These particles are toxic for our body, which tries to fight them with the only defenses it has, creating in the process mild to severe inflammatory responses and oxidative stress. The damage PM 2.5 causes the human body goes beyond the respiratory system, lungs, or heart, and this harm is irreversible. Since the bulk of the initial research conducted on air pollution's health effects has been done on respiratory and cardiovascular health, less is known about other health harms caused by air pollution. Doctors in Bengaluru say that around 20% of the severe cases of heart attacks admitted in ICUs are due to air pollution. By the way, this is all cited. But apart from hypertension and heart arrhythmia, which leads to heart attacks and strokes in Indians as young as 16 years old, polluted air triggers many other lifestyle and non communicable diseases. It can lead to diabetes, cancer, obesity, kidney, and liver disease. It affects neurological pathways, thus causing cognitive and psychiatric impact and triggering autism, dementia, Alzheimer's, depression, bipolar disorder. It also results in infertility, prenatal, neonatal, and postnatal health harm, and childhood leukemia. Air pollution affects every human organ, writes Damien Carrington, The Guardian's environmental editor, quoting scientists from the Forum of International Respiratory Societies, who state that air pollution may be damaging acutely as well as chronically every organ and virtually every cell in the human body. It would be at least 2 more years before we slowly found out how ubiquitously, holistically, these particles affect the human body. Our knowledge deepening like a horror story in slow motion. It was like unpeeling layers of an imperceptibly decomposing onion to get to the dark, rotten core, invisible from the outside. Over time, I would find out through the tweets of Dr. Maria Naira, the Director of Public and Environmental Health at the WHO, that there were more than 70,000 scientific papers linking air pollution to health harm. But back in 2013, we were still fumbling for information. Some of us, including me, still in denial. So I'm going to end here so that we can take the conversation with Sherry forward. Thank you.
All right. It's a great book, Jyoti. What I love is that in this book you not only present kind of scientific facts but you also weave in your personal story. So you have, it's really heartbreaking. My deepest condolences about your mom, but you also talk about your children and how hard it is to raise your children knowing that you have to put a lot of limits on them. You cannot play sports early morning, you have to check the pollution. So, for me, that's the reason that I also got involved is when I found out that my children smoke 7 cigarettes a day. Living in Gurgaon all year round, last year they smoked 2,500 cigarettes, which was heartbreaking. And I just wanted to talk to you about kind of the guilt of, how do you kind of live with that? How do you, I know you've processed it in a very constructive way, but, tell me more about kind of being a mom and having that to deal with.
So I think with once you know these facts about air pollution, it's very hard to unknow it. It's like it seeps into your blood in another different way. Uh, you know, uh, when you have young children, you don't want to scare them. You don't want to constantly be telling them about something that they are powerless to do anything about. Yet you do want to protect them. Every maternal instinct is to protect your child. So it's a very delicate balance, I think. And I think most of us, and you run Warrior Moms, which is again a national organization that is exactly dealing with things like this. I think we all understand as mothers how much you want to protect our children, right? But I think for some of us, we don't realize that this is also affecting us. It's affecting us, it's affecting our elderly, it's affecting our parents. I actually now ask people, there's a challenge that I literally throw out to people. Find me any family in India, just one family in whose extended family there isn't any of these diseases that are triggered by air pollution. My own father has COPD. I have a very close friend. In fact, he's another co-founder of Care for Air. His mother has COPD. I was talking to Dia Mirza a couple of weeks ago. She was on an Insta live with me. She said her mother has COPD. COPD for people who are non-smokers is definitely caused by air pollution. And I think some of us don't even know it. So I think the short answer to your question is really there's not much we can do at this point apart from raising our voice, raising our awareness, trying to fight this constructively, and in the meantime, trying to protect ourselves from the health harm of air pollution.
And you're saying that it affects, a lot of us have grown up with air pollution, and a lot of us have a lot of it in our bodies. I grew up in South Bombay, where I walked to school, and we were very proud of that. But now I think about all the diesel fumes that I breathed in. A lot of my friends, especially this with this COVID pandemic happening, they've had lung tests done, and the doctors assured them that they were smokers, and my friends were like, "No, we were not smokers." But the doctors are telling them, "No, no, definitely you have the lungs of smokers." And I myself, I mean, a dentist told me once, "Okay, you are a smoker," and I said, "No, I'm not a smoker." And he said, "No, no, you are a smoker." So I mean, for all of us who, probably have these black lungs, I mean, doctors are showing these pictures, right? I mean, do you have any kind of recommendations of what we can do now? I mean, is there any detoxing? I
So
guess we're talking to a group of scientists here. So,
yes, yes.
uh,
So I think there are no. So I want to make a difference. I want to differentiate between solutions and mitigation and protection.
okay.
So solutions are only one, that we have to lower emissions which cause air pollution, and air pollution has a whole bunch of reasons. Crop burning isn't the only one, firecrackers aren't the only one. uh, you have vehicular pollution, you have all the different, and India being at a stage of development where we want a lot of growth, we tend to use a lot of fossil fuels in our growth story, and that does cause a lot of emissions. So the only real solution for cleaning our outdoor air is to reduce emissions. I also want to point out at this point that indoor air pollution actually is another hidden part of ambient or outdoor air pollution. Nearly 30% of air pollution, which is generated from chulhas and biomass which is burnt in our villages, comes out and spreads in the. In fact, there's one chapter in my book when I'm driving back to Delhi after immersing the ashes of my mother, when I actually see all those fumes and everything out there in the open. And that's, again, it makes me realize I knew that in my head, but when I see all that, it really makes me realize. And I think in that sense, just making ourselves aware of all this is a very big first step. So, to come back to solutions, reducing emissions is the only solutions. But I think what you're also asking there is, how do we protect ourselves and our loved ones? And those kind of protections and mitigations, unfortunately, wearing masks, which now COVID has made, the COVID pandemic actually has helped in a small way. There is now research that shows the number of people who have been dying from air pollution has come down because of the masks that are being worn for protecting them from COVID. There's more research that in the last couple of months have been a bunch of research papers like that. um, I think wearing masks, using air purifiers indoors. A lot of people ask me that, will our immunity come down if we use air purifiers? Because, we are using this, but bahar to jana padta hai. We have to step out of the house. We can't stay in this bubble all the time. And my answer to that is, of course, your immunity will not come down, because this is solid particulate matter that we are talking about, which lodges in your lungs. It's exactly like smoking, and that's why the smoking reference is taken time and again. That when you talk about people who say, oh, we will build our immunity by continuing to breathe dirty, and Indians ke lungs mein bahut, I have so many people who tell me, especially of a generation that comes before us. Even my parents used to say, Arey, we'll build our immunity like this. And now they realize that no, that's not how you build your immunity, because these are cumulative, irreversible effects that are being caused to our body by inhaling these particles. Because, and indeed, if we were actually building our immunity, wouldn't smokers have the best immunity out of all of us? So I think I rest my case there, that you do not build your immunity by this. So even if we use air purifiers in our homes at night, just for those 8 to 10 hours, we are reducing, instead of smoking 50 cigarettes, maybe we're smoking 25. And that effect of smoking fewer cigarettes will translate to somewhat a better. So that's the only way really at this point to protect ourselves. But the solution lies in bringing down emissions, which is what I think we should all try to do in our own ways.
Any more questions?
Uh, I think we do.
I think you should go ahead.
I love that your book is, and your organization actually, it's kind of the reflection of what's new in science and evidence based. And because we just hear so much non-science these days. And you talk to people from Lawrence Berkeley labs, from Terry in India, so you have this kind of gamut of scientists who are backing you up. On the other hand, you have ministers and top ministers in the government who are saying things like do pranayam to improve your lung capacity, and do, and that all these of health effects don't apply to Indians because Indians are different. And so, how do you kind of, especially in this group here, I would like to talk about, non-science versus science, and kind of how do you deal with all the myths and, all the kind of nonsense that is put out so often by the highest authorities sometimes.
Yes, I think that's a very good question because honestly, this is exactly how we deal with it. You are doing it in with Warrior Moms. We try and use social media. We try and reach out to people, excellent like this retirement home community with so many learned people here. We are hoping to just spread this information, keep telling them that we only want credible science. We want the evidence and data that is backing every single thing we say. And then the WHO has a huge repository of information. So anytime we want people to become aware, we want people to question. So, for example, in Parliament, I think Dr. Harshvardhan and our Honorable Environment Minister, Mr. Javadekar, have gone on record firstly saying that, oh, there are no Indian studies that prove that air pollution causes harm. That's wrong. In fact, that was called out by the WHO, and we retweeted that. I think they also said nobody's death certificate will ever have air pollution written on it. That's what our Honorable Minister had said in Parliament. And now that has also changed because in London, and that is also there in the book because I interviewed the mother of Ella, who has Rosamund Kissy Deborah's daughter. Ella died at the age of 9. She was almost 10 when she died of severe respiratory distress. And now her mother courageously fought on for almost 3, 4, 5 years to try and get air pollution written on her death certificate. And in a landmark judgment last month, that was actually done. So now I don't think anybody can say that, air pollution is not a cause of death. It is now formally a cause of death in England. And lastly, we also have, in fact, the Supreme Court has also said, please set up smog towers. That's another red herring, unfortunately, where you have outdoor smog towers. So in a closed room, like I was saying, we use air purifiers and filters to filter out the smallest, deadliest particles, the PM2.5 particles. But outdoors, these kind of smog towers actually are completely ineffective and useless. And public money is being spent to set up these smog towers. There are scientific papers that prove that these are ineffective. And if you notice, every time whether it's the government or the courts talk about this, no scientist is being quoted saying, yes, this works outdoors. It's almost like saying that, to deal with climate change, why don't we install some air conditioners outside? It's almost like that, because what actually air purifiers outdoors do is, by using, and especially if they have physical filters, they will filter out. Yes, they will filter out because that is technologically what they're supposed to do, but those filters get clogged very quickly. And those filters are then dumped in our landfills, which are already overflowing. And therefore, you end up having a lot of burning happening in addition to what our landfills already do. There also already a lot of burning there. And thus, that smoke will then come back into our own lungs. So actually, they end up making air pollution worse. But unfortunately, since science is not being, quoted, it's not being cited, that is what we're going to end up with: public money going waste in these outdoor smog towers. And unfortunately, some have been set up in Bangalore, some have been set up in Delhi, some have been set up in Mumbai, and none of them work. They are most of them, over a period of 2 to 4 to 6 months, end up being used as dustbins, because even people around them start realizing. The one in Lajpat Nagar, if you last week another colleague had gone there. Actually, a French journalist was trying to measure air quality in around that new smog tower that MP Gautam Gambhir has set up in Lajpat Nagar, and he said the tower wasn't working, and yet people around there, the traders there said, "नहीं नहीं, हमारी तो अब हवा साफ है." So that kind of misrepresentation and misinformation that is being spread, that needs to be curbed, and that's why, that's what people like you and we and all of us are trying to do here.
Kind of speaking about myths, I suppose. I don't. There's a question in the chat about plants, indoor plants for air purification. So would you, also I guess we can talk about agarbattis and some of these other things. So why
Yeah.
don't you do that?
So anything that is combusted, which would include agarbattis, anything that creates smoke. Smoke is, so there are two types, when you call, I think, dhua and dhool is what, when we try and explain to people in Hindi, when we're trying to, reach out to children from municipal schools, and where we try and make it very simple, we're trying to simplify and amplify science. We say dhua and dhool are equivalent to PM 2.5, which is dhua, and dhool, which is PM 10. So anything that creates any sort of combustion does create, some amount of PM 2.5, including, and this is there in the book, because I myself, I love agarbattis, and I used to always light them in my own puja. And Barun, one of the first person who actually was able to show me, because I, like most people, I came from a scientific background. I had taken up science in my class 12, and I did not believe myself. And I think part of me was in denial that there is indeed this mysterious invisible particle that is making us all sick. And one of the co-founders of Care for Air later, Barun Aggarwal, he came home with a dust track, which is a monitor which can actually measure and shows you through, it's a particle monitor. And when he walked around my house, he was shouting out these numbers. Oh, it's 139 here, it's 250 here. And when he entered the back of the house where I used to light all my agarbattis, his monitor just went off whack. It was going like over 300. And he said, "What do you do here? Do you light something here?" And I said, "Yes, I do. I light agarbattis here." So agarbattis also create a lot of, and I think Dr. Arvind Kumar of the chest, he's a chest surgeon at now at Medanta, earlier at Sir Gangaram Hospital. He was telling me about how he has talked to priests who sit in small enclosed rooms with a lot of dhoop and agarbatti being lit, and how bad their own lung function is. He has measured it, and he has talked about it. So these are, again, things that we can be careful of in our own homes. I have unfortunately not lit an agarbatti for a long time. I do occasionally, like the lapsed smoker, I will light one outdoors and just smell it. But I haven't done it for a long time, because in Delhi we're anyway breathing this. On the plants that you were talking about, plants actually do not filter PM 2.5, but they do help in other ways. Of course, if you are living in an area with a lot of trees, etc., the roots of the trees will hold on to the earth much better. You will not get PM10, a lot of dust and all. There's always less dust. They are oxygen producing, so they are wonderful to have around. But actually, if you're looking to reduce PM 2.5, that plants don't do. In fact, they themselves suffer from this, because their own stomata, they get blocked, and their own oxygen making capacity declines. And a lot of plants you'll see in Delhi just before the monsoons look half dead, because they are blocked with so much of pollution. It's only after the rains that they start looking green and alive again. So there are plants. There's a NASA list of NASA plants. There are money plants, absorb a lot of VOCs, volatile organic compounds. So, if you have money plants in the house and you have a lot of paint or any other volatile organic compound, they get absorbed by some plants. And I think there's another one which is a plant called Sansevieria. It's also known as mother-in-law's tongue. It's a very sharp, spiky plant that produces oxygen at night. So people put those plants in their bedrooms to increase the flow of oxygen, especially if you're purifying the room, which means you are, tightly enclosing it. There's not a lot of ventilation happening. So you want to have some plants there which are like the Sansevieria plant, which allow oxygen to be formed at night.
Thank you. This is for everyone. Please use the chat box to write any comments or ask any questions, then we can really make this a conversation. There's one more question. Ajit, I'll take it.
Is there any effort to make HEPA filters that can be used on Windows instead of using? So there are people who are trying. I have seen HEPA filters being used in a window unit of a fan. You do need a fan. Unfortunately, you will need electricity because you need the ventilation to happen. So basically, a HEPA filter is like a chunni. It's like a sieve. So it's sieving out the tiny particles. So you do need to have some amount of airflow, and for that, I guess you would need some sort of electric, like an electrical purifier. So I have seen people trying to, and there are innovations happening in this area, but there isn't something that I can immediately point my finger to. I can, if somebody is interested, I can connect you to people who are doing this kind of stuff, and I believe they're also trying to put HEPA filters in air conditioner units so that even while your air conditioner is running, the air can be purified. Yes, but mosquito repellents. Thank you for asking that. Mosquito repellents are when you're lighting anything again. So mosquito repellent, which you light like those, what are they called? Those coils. Those are extremely dangerous and they cause very high levels of PM 2.5. And if you, I mean, unfortunately, we live in a country where mosquitoes are everywhere. Even at 4 degrees in Delhi, we've had mosquitoes which haven't died because of COVID. I think the state government did not spray as much, so we've had a year-round mosquito problem. So we tend to use mosquito nets, the old-fashioned way, or if you really don't want to get into that, then using those other, those plug-in things for mosquitoes, that might be a better idea. But mosquito repellents, I would just absolutely recommend not using them at all.
Since we have people from all over the country, there's different, obviously, amounts of air pollution in different cities. A lot better in the south versus the north. But I remember a plot that you had shown me in one of your presentation that showed me the health effects were like an exponential curve, and we can talk about it here because of the kind of group we have. So even at low levels of air pollution, I mean, like Dr. Raja mentioned that the WHO level for safe air is 10 PM 2.5 value of 10. So even at low levels of air pollution, you have a lot of health effects, and something like 100% of India has bad air. So that means all our children are kind of um, breathing. Can you talk about that whole aspect of it?
Yes, so the bad news is that there is no real level at which you can say, okay, I'm breathing, unless you're breathing air which has zero PM 2.5, which we don't have anywhere in India. I think there are a couple of places if you go up to the mountains, and I know that Barun, the same gentleman, had measured zero at Rishikesh at some point of time. He had brought the reading home and shown it to all of us in Delhi. Um, there is actually, even the WHO number is a limit. If you notice, they say this is the limit at which it should be. So this is like saying that smoking zero cigarettes is the best thing, but if you're smoking just one cigarette a day, of course that's better than 10. And like you said, your children have smoked 2,500 cigarettes in the last year, so you want to bring that number down as much as possible. The exponential effects, unfortunately, even at low levels of exposure, air pollution does harm. And we don't need to worry about that because we're at such high levels. We have to even bring that down to some semblance of normality. Our numbers are off the charts. But I know in the Western countries, in Europe, etc., they are even taking numbers which are, for India and for Delhi especially, as low as 80, 90. They start panicking at those levels. They call I mean, I think Paris 2 years ago at 90 had called an air pollution emergency. When there were wildfires in California, I mean, there was emergency and air pollution emergency all over. And our numbers in most of India are regularly much over those numbers of
Yeah, I
wildfires
remember
while wildfires were
when
on
it
in
was
California
90.
or in Australia.
I remember when it was 90, we were sending our kids out, okay, go play, it's clean air, and
Yeah, go.
our standard
Yeah,
is different.
exactly. And in fact, this is one thing that I feel quite annoyed about, because I know that 2 years ago, or was it 3 years ago, Decathlon was sponsoring a marathon in Delhi as well as in California. And again, 3 years ago, California had some wildfires. They cancelled the marathon in California, but they did not cancel it in Delhi. And we had called them out for what we call pollution racism, that, you can't have two sets of standards for different, human lungs are the same everywhere. So you can't cancel one and not, because worse than having air pollution around you is actually increasing your aerobic activity during high levels of pollution. And a marathon obviously is a very high level of pollution. We should not be running out there or even breathing deeply, in fact. So, yeah.
Few more questions have
I
come up.
would,
Yeah.
can I just say that maybe we could take the rest of the questions after Anushri's presentation, because that may
Fine.
answer some of the questions that you all
Fine.
already
Fine.
have. If we can
Fine.
just have
Let's.
Anushri make her five
Yes.
ten minute presentation.
Certainly.
Anushri, would you
Yeah, should
start
I
your
begin?
presentation, please?
Yeah. One second. I'm so sorry. One second. Ma'am, I just have one technical difficulty. Can you answer one more question as I just fix this for a second?
There's some questions on the chat. What is the closest organization in India similar to the apolitical American CDC that can publish unbiased reports about air pollution? You're on mute, Jyoti.
Like the CDC, yeah, I think the closest to that would probably be the ICMR, I'm thinking, but unfortunately, we haven't seen a lot of reports coming out. They have come out with some good reports. In fact, last month, they had come out with a report which told us in very clear terms that not only, I'll tell you what they had said. They had said that India had 1.7 million deaths. Almost 18% of deaths in India were caused due to air pollution. That was an ICMR study published in the Lancet. And not only that, they said that was causing a loss of 1.4% of GDP. So that's 260,000 crore. So that's the loss which is not accounted for, because our GDP numbers, like most other things, GDP is also a construct and it looks at only certain things. It doesn't look at the imputed losses due to loss of productivity, people going to doctors, people being sick and missing work. Those things are actually not, not, and when the ICMR does that, that's the number you come to, that almost. And the number that the WHO has the World Bank has said for this is much higher actually, and it's there in the book. I think that number was, just trying to see if I can quickly find it. Yeah, one study that that the World Bank did was, that's estimate was that air pollution cost India 8% of its GDP, or $560 billion in 2016, due to lost productivity, premature mortality, and morbidity. And so ICMR has come out with one or two studies, but not enough. And unfortunately, because they don't do a lot of these epidemiological studies, then we have, people in parliament can get away by saying, these are studies done abroad. We don't have the same kind of stuff in India. We don't have it because we don't put any kind of focus on it. We don't put in enough resources into creating these kind of studies, and we need more of these studies.
Are you ready, Anushree?
Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Please start.
Okay, so is my screen visible? To
Yes, it is, Anushri.
Okay.
You're doing
So
good.
I'm going to begin by just quickly introducing our organization. CAFRAIR is an independent organization that works towards building awareness about air pollution as a means to fight it. This is a quick glance at our governing board, of which Jyoti ma'am is obviously a part, and our advisors. So I'm going to begin by just showing you something that will put into perspective what exactly we're talking about. So we drink 2 to 4 liters of water in one day, but we breathe 12,000 to 13,000 liters of air in a day. Now, the water that we drink is purified. We drink it after it's been filtered very well, but we don't do the same for our air. And it's really important for us to do so. And I'll be talking about why. So in this presentation, I'm going to be answering 4 questions. What is polluting the air that we breathe? What is AQI? How does air pollution impact our body? And what can we do about it? So before answering the first question, I'm going to talk to you a bit about air pollution in general. So here we can see a picture. Um, on the left side was clicked when there were very high levels of pollution, and the right side was clicked when the air was cleaner. So you can clearly see the amount of smog and how that's decreased the visibility a lot. And it's not been color graded or anything. So that's what it actually looks like during high levels of pollution. Now, there are 2 types of air pollution: outdoor air pollution and indoor air pollution. So, outdoor air pollution is caused by various anthropogenic sources like vehicular emissions that involve combustion of fossil fuels and industrial emissions. Indoor air pollution happens when the outdoor air pollution enters our houses through windows or doors. And as Jyoti ma'am talked about, agarbattis, things like this that we don't realize increase our pollution a lot. Like, for example, when we get a paint job done, the paint fumes are very toxic and are increasing our indoor air pollution. Now we're gonna do a small activity. If it's possible, then unmute yourself for this, or you can just type in the chat. I'm going to read out a few statements, and you're gonna guess whether it's a myth or a fact, whether it's false or true. So the first statement is air pollution is a seasonal problem. So this is a myth. Air pollution is an all year round problem. And even though it's worse in the winters, uh, it impacts us throughout the year. Air pollution only affects Delhi. This is also a myth. Air pollution affects all of India. Even though it's a lot worse in North India, um, all of India is affected by it. If you wear a pollution mask or use a HEPA filter in your home, it hurts your immunity. This is a myth. Like Jyoti ma'am was talking about, whether we smoke 16 cigarettes a day, we're just trying to lower that. And so wearing a pollution mask or lowering a filter cleans our air, which helps our immunity, because air pollution is a cumulative disease. It has cumulative impacts. Green crackers are not safe. Sorry. This is a fact, and it's also sort of a trick question because there are no such things as green crackers. All crackers cause pollution. Indoor air is cleaner than outdoor air. This is sort of a myth. Some pollutants are more inside the house, and some pollutants are more outside the house. Air pollution affects only those people who already have respiratory problems. This is also a myth. Air pollution actually causes respiratory problems, even if you already have healthy lungs in the beginning. Outdoor air purification is not an evidence based solution. This is a fact. Like Jyoti ma'am was talking about outdoor air purifiers, none of these are addressing the actual cause of air pollution or combating them at the source, which means that it's not an evidence based solution, and having new machines isn't what's going to fix it. We are Indians, we have a strong immune system, and breathing polluted air will only make you immune to it. This is a myth. Breathing polluted air does not make us immune to it. Air pollution is a problem of only the rich. This is also a myth. There's actually an inequity in how air pollution impacts us, because while the rich can afford air purifiers and more expensive masks that protect us, the poor can't. And so this means that they're more impacted than we are. Here you can see a world map and there are a lot of red dots that shows the most polluted cities. So you can see a large cluster of these in North India, and on the right you can see what these cities are. So we can see just how much air pollution impacts India. Now I'm going to answer the question, what is polluting the air we breathe? We look at this in three broad categories: particulate matter, gaseous pollutants, and microbes. Particulate matter is really fine particles that are suspended in the air. So, Jyoti ma'am talked about PM 2.5 and PM 10. PM 2.5 is that which those particles which have a diameter of 2.5 microns or less, and PM 10 is that which has a diameter of 10 microns or less. Although our nostrils can block some particles from entering our body, particulate matter, PM 2.5, all of these are really small and they enter our body. Some of them are suspended in our respiratory tracts, but others enter our lungs and they go deeper. And from there, they enter our bloodstream, which is how air pollution doesn't only impact the lungs, but it impacts other organs as well. It causes cardiac arrests or kidney failure, liver failure because of how it enters our bloodstream. Then we have gaseous pollutants like ozone, volatile organic compounds, nitrogen oxides, and sulfur oxides. Long term exposure to these in large quantities is really harmful for us. Um, Auto drivers, for example, are constantly surrounded by this because of the air that they're breathing. So that's another way how air pollution impacts the poor more than it does us. Then we have microbes like bacteria and virus. So we can clearly see the effect of a virus on the entire world right now because we're all dealing with COVID-19. Uh, exposure to these, some exposure to these is good for building our immunity, but more of that is really harmful. These are some sources of emissions. So we have factories or power plants which cause industrial emissions and pollute our air a lot. Vehicles which combust fossil fuels and pollute our air more. Construction. So here, you when construction workers are working with marble, for instance, a lot of marble dust is created, which is really, really toxic when you inhale it. Then we have firecrackers, um, dust from roads, which flies into the air and enters our body. Crop burning, which is more of a seasonal problem because when farmers start to burn their crops, that's when the wind changes and the temperature drops, and that's how it spreads throughout North India. Burning waste, a lot of waste is burned. Thousands of tons of waste is burned daily in Delhi itself. Imagine like plastic burning and magnify that to a huge number. That's like how toxic the air is because of burning waste. And then we have diesel gensets. This is a short video on air pollution. we can see how air pollution is the silent killer. And right now, what India is going through is what we call the twin pandemic, both COVID 19 and air pollution. These are global standards that are prescribed by the World Health Organization of what our limit should be of inhaling particulate matter. And so, in a day, we should always be the daily mean should be less than 25 micrograms per meter cube for PM 2.5. And for PM 10, it should be less than 50 micrograms per meter cube. This is a limit. And so, if you have a place that's like zero, then obviously that is ideal, but it should never go above this, which it does in India. The AQI should always be between 0 to 51. To understand this, I'm going to answer the question, what is AQI? So AQI is air stands for Air Quality Index. It's basically a number that tells us the level of pollution in a city. It's an easier way to understand how polluted your air is, which is why it's color coded, which I'll come to. It calculates the levels for six major pollutants: particulate matter, PM 2.5 and PM 10, ozone, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, and carbon monoxide. According to the Indian Air Quality Index, good air has an AQI of less than 50. So here we can see a chart of AQI in India. The shades of green are when it's good. Yellow is when we're not comfortable, but it's still not as bad as all of the shades of red, which is really severe. Now, the reason that it says AQI in India and not just AQI is because different countries have different air quality indexes. So, what is severe in India is considered hazardous in the United States according to their air quality index. In 2018, Delhi had just 3 days in which the AQI was less than 50. In the bar graph on the left, you can see that the average AQI of New York is 30, as compared to the average AQI of New Delhi, which is 188. And the maximum AQI recorded in New Delhi was 1240, which is off our charts of how we define it. Here you can see that according to the color, you should be planning out your outdoor exercise activities. So when it's blue or green, you can exercise intensely or moderately. When it's yellow, then you should be exercising lighter. And when it's shades of red, then you should either exercise very mildly or not exercise at all. Uh, this is different for different age groups. So in these three columns of color, if you look at the third column, you can see that for senior citizens, from 200 AQI itself, you shouldn't be doing any outdoor activity or exercise at all because of the bad air quality. And so this differs based on how vulnerable the group is. Now, this is going to be another small activity in which I'm going to show you a picture of a city and you're going to guess what the AQI was on this day. So this is Bangalore on 7th December 2018. The AQI on this day was 316, which is really bad. And that's how you see that air pollution isn't just a problem of North India. This is another day in Bangalore this year. Here, the AQI was 47. So you can see, according to the picture as well, how clear the air is. So this was a good day. Gurugram, 23rd November 2018. The air quality this day was 302. And so that is also pretty bad. Chennai in 2019.
I'm just going to interrupt here to say that, we assume that Delhi and the north of India has the worst air quality, which is true if you're looking at it relatively, because, North India has the barrier of the Himalayans in the Himalayan range in the north. And then when temperatures fall, inversion happens, so all the pollutants get trapped in sort of this layer of cold air. And we are, sort of literally breathing this, we're in a bowl of polluted air that we're breathing in North India. But as Anushri has shown you, last year specifically, there was this plume of smoke that went from, and some people said it was this crop stubble burning, the smoke from that literally the wind took across to Chennai. And here, why I'm bringing this in and coming in here is because air is the ultimate democratizer. It's the ultimate democratizer. It has knows no geographical boundaries. It knows no socio-economic boundaries. It knows no boundaries at all. The rich, the poor, everybody is affected. And then south people in the south think that north is worse. Some of us in the north who have seen levels, Mumbai last week had much worse levels of air quality than even Delhi had. And there are a lot of people who are now tracking air quality in Mumbai, in Kolkata, all these areas where you feel that the sea being there, the breeze will take the pollutants away. But imagine how high that load is, that even the sea breeze cannot take it away. So Delhi has its geographical misfortune, but other metros in India are equally badly off. And some people who say, well, the rural areas must be better. The rural areas have uh, indoor air pollution to deal with, which then contributes much more because there are more people not using LPG and using more of biomass and woods and twigs and that kind of material to cook. And 3 times a day cooking with that material can actually really cause high levels of pollution.
Yeah, so exactly. So on this day, this is South India, but the air quality index was 280. Then we have our last picture, which was a relatively good day because the air pollution was 61. Now we're going to talk about how pollution affects our body. So, air pollution has long term and short term effects. On the left, you can see the short term effects like headache and eye inflammation. Um, a lot of these I face on a daily basis. I have a really bad cough when the pollution is bad and a lot of hair fall. Then we have the long term effects. So, apart from the respiratory diseases that are caused by air pollution, it affects our central nervous system, causes cardiovascular diseases, and has impacts on our liver and reproductive system. This is an image showing that. So, the image on the left is that of a non smoker from Himachal Pradesh. And the image on the right is that of a non smoker from Delhi. And so, even though neither of these people smoked, you can clearly see the difference of the person who lived in Delhi because of the air quality that they were breathing. Now we come to the last point of our presentation. What can we do about it? To answer this question, I'm going to be answering it in two parts. The first part will be what can we push our government to do about it? And the second will be what can we ourselves do about it? So, to answer the first part, we should encourage our government to issue awareness and advisories so that people know when they should be planning their outdoor activities and aerobics. There should be transport regulations. A 20% overload of transportation of goods causes 500% more pollution. So they should be maintaining our roads, encouraging people to use public transport, and a regulation of transportation for goods so that there's less pollution by vehicles. They should be ensuring nationwide introduction of uh, better and more effective fuel norms that will again lower the combustion of fossil fuels and vehicular emission. They should be managing our waste, and this should be done at the root source itself. So, waste segregation into wet and dry waste, and then composting our wet waste so that the overall waste that we're producing is less. And so that after the landfill limit is released, we're not forced to burn the rest of our waste, which causes a lot of pollution. They should find alternatives to crop stubble burning, which causes a lot of pollution in India, especially during the winters. Now we come to what we can do. So, downloading an AQI app helps you plan your outdoor activities according to the pollution level. We should also be wearing a mask, which the pandemic has forced us to do. And so that's protected us from air pollution, like Jyoti ma'am talked about. These are some things that we can do at home to further lower air pollution, like conserving energy, segregating waste, saving water, maintaining our private vehicles engine, using environment friendly cleaning products, buying local products, and not ordering online rush deliveries a lot at a time, saying no to crackers, opting to walk instead of frequent car rides. If you're planning on refurnishing your home, then do it in times where the air quality isn't that bad. Donating shoes and clothes and thermals and heaters as well, so that people less privileged aren't forced to burn their waste in order to keep warm. Growing our own food if we're able to, and opting for solar panels and rainwater harvesting. So this is Jyoti ma'am's book, and this will also help us learn more about why we need to care for the air that we breathe. And that concludes our presentation. This is where you can contact Care for Air.
Thank you very much, Anushree. There are still some questions. Some questions have come up during your presentation. Should we take them up?
Yeah, I think let's
That
just try and
goes.
answer the next few questions and then wrap up after that because,
Yeah, I have just one question. You
yeah,
know, we saw some photographs which Anushree showed us of different cities. Bangalore, for instance, Carbon Park, not very much above the uh, permissible limit, whereas there's another part of Bangalore which had very high levels. Now, doesn't AQI vary between different parts of the cities, and
yes.
also between different times of the day? Someone else has also asked this, in early morning and, let's say, during the rush hours of activity.
Yes, it does. It does vary between different parts of the city. So there is a lot of hyper local. So that's why actually there are a couple of many different people who have come up with these low cost sensors, which now some of us are using in our own areas, and we see that not only, you're absolutely right, not only does air quality differ in different parts of the city, it differs at different times of the day, and especially in places where temperature varies. So Delhi, for example, has the worst quality air early morning and late night, and that's why we recommend that, especially for our senior citizens and children, we recommend that any kind of aerobic activity, whether it's sports day or whether it is walking outdoors, we always recommend you walk between 11 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because if you must walk during high air pollution, then at least relatively speaking, that's the time you will, because the sun burns away a lot of the it allows it to escape from the breathable levels, the ambient levels. So you're absolutely right. And also, there could be a hyperlocal activity happening. For example, if the house next door to you is undergoing construction, your AQI could be very different from your neighbor who's 800 meters away from you. So it can be very that's why we're also trying to see if there are I was talking to somebody who's trying to develop a wearable device for measuring particulate matter, so that wherever you are, you can actually measure what kind of air you're breathing. And the New York Times had done a very interesting story last month where they use these kind of hyperlocal devices between putting it on for a young girl from a privileged family and a young boy from a underprivileged family, where he was exposed to the elements at all points, no air purifier at home, and going to school under the flyover. And so the amount of air pollutants he was breathing compared to this young girl who had an air purifier in her bedroom, went to school in a car which had an air purifier, and then her school was also the classrooms were purified. The amount of exposure to air pollution that she had, and they did the story because the government, whenever we've gone time and again to ask to take air pollution much more seriously, says, oh, this is a rich people's problem, and it's not. It's a social inequity, and this story actually showed rather than told. So it showed by actually showing you data and evidence again, which showed us that this young boy who was exposed to the elements and not did not have access to purifiers and was much worse off than this young girl from a privileged home.
If I may
So
just
is
jump
that,
in,
yeah.
I'm no expert, but I just wanted to add to Mr. Raja's question. Actually, it's just a comment. While he asked that question, I just did a Google search. We live in Whitefield, which is a different country almost compared to Bangalore, but it's considered part of Bangalore. And I just saw the number AQI, Mr. Raja, AQI for Whitefield is 60, 60, but Bangalore is 137. PM 2.5 for Whitefield is 38, whereas for Bangalore is 167. So we're we're doing pretty well compared to the rest of Bangalore. Sorry, I just had to share that because he asked that question. Yeah, so we're doing pretty well. Whitefield is a little far away from Bangalore.
Yeah, so it's possible that you have more open area, you have less vehicular transport. There could be something, or there could be, for example, when we talk of electric vehicles, one of the things I like to say is we don't want to have electric vehicles which are still powered by electricity that is being made by fossil fuels, because then what you're doing is taking it away from tailpipes and putting it in chimneys, which are then polluting the rural areas or the areas that are further away from the cities. You don't really want to do that. So the right answer is having renewable energy, focusing more on wind and water and sun to power our vehicles as well. So I think maybe we have time for one last question,
Yeah.
and then we should. And I really want everybody, if you are on any kind of social media, Sherry runs. Is part of the Warrior Moms, which is a national organization. They have moms in Bangalore, in Pune, in Nagpur, who are using social media to spread awareness. We are part of Care for Air, and we are just trying to. We're totally unfunded, self-funded, non-partisan. We are just want to spread the word, and we do this in our spare time. It's not a 9 to 5; it's a 5 to 9 job for us, where we just try and get other people to understand the severity of air pollution, how much it's affecting our health in every possible way. So if you're on social media, please do follow Warrior Moms and Care for Air. And if you're not, please get onto social media or ask your family, extended family, especially your children, grandchildren, people who have youngsters in their homes and older people, to become more aware.
Yeah, I think most of us are on social media.
Yeah, so please
Certainly.
do.
Follow.
I think
Yes.
Sherry, are you
Yeah.
just on Twitter, or are you also on other media
Yes,
platforms?
Twitter, Facebook,
We're on everything. Facebook,
Okay,
Insta.
okay.
Telegram.
So,
Yeah.
so I think then, if there are no more questions, should we
Yeah.
just yeah? So thank you once again,
Any,
everybody.
okay, I think that's all that there is time for. We have, I think, a couple of questions which I can forward to you,
Yeah,
and then you can maybe, send your response.
of course.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, all of you,
Yeah.
for being such patient and
No,
wonderful
no, I
speakers.
must thank you.
Yeah.
We must thank you. All of us at Athashri have been listening to your talk, your presentation by Anushree, and the conversation between you and Sherry Banu with tremendous interest, because
Yeah.
this is a subject of interest to us, but we didn't know the extent of harm that we were exposing ourselves to. And we would certainly look forward to reading your book, which starts off on a personal note and goes on to discuss the issues from a societal point of view. Uh, and
I just want to, sorry, I just wanted to applaud Anushri, who took time off. I mean, this is her break going on, and I said, do you want to talk to all of us? We're not your
yes,
age, but would that be work?
yeah,
Would that work? And she jumped
yeah.
in right away and said, absolutely.
All strength to Anushree and these
Thank
students who would
you.
be participating with her under her leadership in spreading the movement and spreading awareness of this, I'm sure, all over the country. So thanks to
I
you.
just also
All
want to add, at the end of the book, there are a whole bunch of resources, including Warrior Moms and a whole bunch of other. If
okay.
there are anybody, you don't have to be part of Care for Air or Warrior Moms or anything. You can just go. There are at least 100 resources at the end of the book. There's an epilogue. You can just browse through it and see in what way you want to get involved. But the only thing I would request is just become more aware, protect yourself, and protect your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. We shall do our best. We're all retired people. We have, of course, some time on our hands, so we can use that time productively to spread the message. I hope we'll all be able to do that. Thank you. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed to all three of you.
Thanks.
So, on that note, shall I bring this meeting to an end? Thank you very much.